Jed Collins, welcome to Heavy Lifts. I'm so excited you're here.
Brother, it is so neat to see journeys go in different directions and circle back. I've loved seeing your transition and growth over the last few years, and obviously excited to collaborate and bring some value to your audience.
Oh my goodness, this is a conversation I've been wanting to have for so long, and I want to go back to how we connected. Pat Brown, I believe, was our mutual connection. He was
sir.
my director when I was doing broadcasting with the Portland Timbers, and he was like looking at my journey and looking at how into like finance and real estate I was, and he was like, "I got a guy you need to talk to. His name's Jed," and I was like, "Oh, shoot, this guy's an awesome guy. He played in the NFL. He had a great career. He's since gone on to, do some amazing things in the personal finance world, which I find so interesting. So I'm like, thanks, Pat. He's our connection.
He absolutely, and that's something I tell young people today is build that network. You never know when you're going to need it, but you meet good people. They are surrounded usually by good people, and then your circles get to connect and collide, and opportunities like this, come to fruition.
They do, and I love professional sports for that. Having it's kind of I want to call it a sorority because it's both guys and girls who've played professional sports and have this background. It's like when you're done, we all can go in different directions, different journeys. You obviously chose yours. I'm really curious to dive in first of all into your professional this professional sports side of your journey, and just like what that experience was like for you, and kind of just what lessons you learned.
Oh, I mean, we could spend the whole 60 minutes on just lessons I got to be around. If you get the opportunity to experience greatness, and I'm not saying I was great, but I was 3 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet from greatness for quite a few years, steal as much as you can from those individuals. I look at kind of the experience I got to go through the NFL. My journey wasn't the typical one. It was an idea that I now identify myself as a great failure. I got cut 13 times. I was told to go home, shown the door over and over. And truly my challenge to myself was walking out of each building. Who was one veteran? What was one skill, idea, concept that I was going to take and be able to bring into my life after? And that is kind of that rookie to veteran development. It's something that I really look at athletes today and say, try to find those translatable, transferable skills and the story that you learned it from. And so, yes, identifying as a great failure, FAIL, first attempt in learning. That was my professional career. I was not a first rounder. I was not the prize jewel, but I was a guy who was a really tough man to kill, tough to get rid of. And even though I got cut 13 times, I was still standing and went from survival to success.
That's pretty amazing. 13 times to be cut from a team, and the kind of that feeling, right, where somebody's kicking you out the door, right? But you're still,
Yep.
You mentioned it, you're still able to say, I'm on my way out and I want to learn from this. So what were some of the things that you learned on your way out, of some of those locker rooms? Because you said you would gravitate towards guys and you would, kind of get gain pieces of information. What were some of those conversations like?
I mean, right out the gate, we called it finding your graybeard. Just mentioned it's around networking, finding a mentor, somebody above you that you can follow, imitate, whether they know it or not. I mean, half the guys I took away from probably didn't even know I was observing them. But mentoring is kind of 3 levels. You have your plus, which is above you, your minus, which is the young but beneath you, and then your equals. And I think having peer-to-peer mentors, that accountability partner, is amazing. So finding that graybeard. I got to work with a guy named Drew Brees, and everything about Drew was built around a habit in a system. Every moment of his day was efficient and effective because it was part of his program and his regime. And so being around him, I learned a lot about trusting those habits. If you ever want to repeatedly find success in anything, you have to build your habits. And so really translating that to my daily life of being a parent, being a business owner, and just being an athlete beyond, your career, habits, routines are everything when you want to find success. But one of the major things I kind of came away with was something we talk about a lot in the business world is your North Star. And something that was written on a lot of the NFL buildings that I got to go into was most over now. Those who have goals and have priorities are able to sacrifice what they want now for what they want most. And when you really develop that tool and that mindset, you realize it's not a sacrifice, it's a prioritization. Now I am willing to put what I want most over this moment. Sometimes that's putting it over my ego, sometimes putting it over a temptation, sometimes it's putting it over laziness, but I'm able to prioritize what I want most over a lot of those things. And as I look at kind of the daily life in a corporate space, being an entrepreneur, building your habits, finding your mentors, and truly setting that most of your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month are translatable skills that really everybody can take away from. The idea that I started to realize how much the game of football was going to take from me. And you really enter into it with a business mindset and say, well, if it's going to take from me, I better start taking from it, having it last a lot longer. One of the messages I talk to a lot of professional athletes today is about decades, not days. Your dream was not just built around some awesome days in your teens or 20s. It was, how does this game support and set up the next several decades of my life? To do that, you have to understand how money works, how to speak the language. My first paycheck in the NFL, I got and spent every dime of it before it even hit my bank account. I'm not ashamed of it. It was a poor financial habit. Now, many people will point out the greatest investment I could make. I bought an engagement ring. 17 years later, she's still around, so very good investment.
You're a lucky man.
But exactly. The idea that my relationship with money was make money, spend money. That was as far as I got. That was as far as I was educated in. And in my rookie year, I started to look around and see the stories and see the statistics and hey, this guy's going broke, and most athletes make bad financial decisions. And it was that fear of, Jed, you're a fullback. You're an undrafted fullback. You're never going to get millions. And with more, you may have more room to have some mess ups, but it is just as big of a problem. And so how could I educate myself and start learning this language to where I saw a paycheck no longer as what can I go spend it on, but how can I treat this thing like an employee? How can I see that money is lazy, and if I don't tell it how to go to work for me, it never is. And so that fear was the start, and it truly set me down a path and a journey to find my new passion beyond the game of football, beyond being the athlete. I saw so many opportunities to educate, whether that was a rookie walking in the door, a 16-year-old starting to think, even 40, 50-year-olds today who just have never been taught this language. And so I kind of took that as, this is my new opportunity, this is my new world and passion.
I love it. I think fear is such a big motivator. I think when you, especially in professional sports where, we're judged game by game, right? We're judged training by training. And, if you don't perform, you're not going to, play again, right? And same thing goes with money. If you spend it, it's gone. Like, you don't have anything to live off of. And I've experienced the same thing. It was like, I'm fearful of what's going to happen next, right? There's so much uncertainty. When was the moment though that you decided you wanted to get into like teaching about, about money and kind of getting into this? Like, I don't want to skip too many chapters here, but was there, was there a gap between your professional career ending and then did you just start right up, or did something happen in between?
I started while playing. I do love that you say fear is a great motivator. A good philosophical question is, what's the difference between motivation and inspiration? Often motivation is running away from something, inspiration is running towards something. And so it is kind of a funny dynamic of saying, yes, fear is a great motivator. I want to get away from that thing. But as I look at kind of where my world changed, I was my first student. So my first several years I was studying. I started actually each offseason becoming a certified financial planner. I was challenged by a mentor to go and start learning the true language. And as I did that, guys in the locker room started to ask me questions. And once I was able to take this mastery in this language that I was learning and translate it to a place where guys were understanding it, they were digesting it, and they were acting upon it, that is where that light and that fire started. I remember specifically talking to a rookie and having the discussion towards the end of the season that our paychecks were going to stop coming. You get paid to play in the NFL. Your game checks are your year's salary. And him talking about how Christmas had just come and gone and how he had spent a ton of money on 30 to 40 family members flying in. He was first generation American, and so flew him in from out of the country. This was truly their first Christmas that they experienced together. And me just taking that moment and saying, you gave your family that amazing day. They will never forget that. But right now, we're talking about you running out of money this offseason. In the next 6 months, what are you going to live on? And what have you set up for you in 10 to 20 years? And it was a lack of education. It wasn't so much a lack of him frivolously spending and doing a bunch of wrong things. It was just the notion that one of the biggest hurdles us as professional athletes we face is who is we and we made it. If I make it, does that mean everybody at my draft party made it with me? Where does that stop? Mm-hmm. And so it was identifying if you can give athletes the same skills they have on their field in the weight room, how they perform in the world of money, if you can get them to see how related they are, they can find success. And what really inspired me was the idea that everybody sells you on this professional athlete dream. Go spend your life trying to inch ahead of your opponent and be lucky enough to stay healthy and play as long as you can. And then the statistics of how many professional athletes leave their game with nothing to show for it financially, that feels more like a nightmare. Now you're a 28, 30-year-old starting with no financial footing, a decade behind most of your peers in their career. That's not a dream. And so what really inspired me was trying to recapture this dream. Look at young athletes. Today the game has changed with NIL and rev share. The opportunity is getting younger, but the opportunity is the same. You have a chance to set up your life from a game if you understand the rules and how to systematize and build habits around it. And so it was truly that idea of how do I prevent the nightmare for me personally, but then looking around the locker room and realizing if I didn't know this language, being an accounting degree and a business major, I'm pretty positive none of these guys were taught to how to speak this. And so it was, how do we recreate the professional athlete dream by capturing not just the memories, but the money to come along with it.
And so what was the beginning of Money Vehicle, like the Money Vehicle? When did that start? Would that just like the idea started when you were you were in the pros and then you just launched it right away, or has it really taken a while to kind of come together?
It's taken a while. I like to say it's been a 17-year journey. In 2012, I went back to Washington State, my alumni, and started teaching student athletes about money. I was a current player. I was interested. I was learning myself the CFP. What I realized in that presentation was, Nat, I was trying to give them everything I know. Here is all the information. And you come back and you realize, okay, that was too much. They didn't know, the tax association. They didn't know the investments. They didn't know a lot of. So how do I simplify it? And so I spent the next several years, even 2015, transitioning out of the NFL and going into wealth management. I started to say, here are the lessons I wanted to teach you about money. And at the time, I was taking the bus to and from my home to downtown Seattle to work. So on the bus, I would start to try to think creatively. What's a story? What's an analogy? How do I take this concept that nobody really understands and make it simpler into something that you could be able to digest and know? And so that was kind of the beginning, those translations of foreign language of money into more digestible analogies. The money vehicle concept came about when I started to put those stories together, and I started to see that I wasn't there for just one workshop or one lesson. I was building an entire program. I wrote the textbook, and I started to say, what is a analogy that allows me to show people what I want to do with my business in a very short term? The idea of money vehicle came from, I want people to see money as a verb. I want them to see it as a vehicle that's going to take them somewhere. Money is not the final destination. And so as you start to see that analogy and as you start to see that shift of how you see money, then we got to play with the concept. And now we have 12 topics and 12 chapters in the curriculum. Each chapter builds another piece of your vehicle. So your cash management or your budget is your steering wheel. Your engine is your investments. You want to go into a tax-advantaged Roth IRA, that's a hybrid version of your vehicle. So as you start to play through that, the creative side of me, which in football I always tried to hide, and coaches don't want their fullback asking too many questions. So I looked at the creative side and said, this is where I get really excited. When you talk to a student, 16, 20, 26, and they go, that story about the trees, I get what a 401k is now. And you go, all right, that's it. It's silly. You call it whatever you want. Did it make a little more sense than me trying to talk math or finances with you? Yes, that's the goal of Money Vehicle. We don't need you to be a CFP. What I thought when I first started teaching was, I'm training the next generation of CFPs. That's just not true. I am trying to get people to take that singular broken down action that leads to a bigger destination in the future. And that's the beauty of seeing the vehicle analogy, the journey. If you're going to drive from LA to New York, there is an endless ways of roads and avenues to get there. How fast you're going to go, all of those are your choices. But that vehicle that's going to take you there, you have to sit behind the steering wheel. You have to start making the decisions and choices. That's also a question of what we need to really challenge ourselves with is, what is success? So one of the reasons why I ask guys the second question of what is a lot of money is because I've sat with dudes who are negotiating $70 to $75 million contracts. What is the difference between a $70 and a $75 million contract? Ego. And if you go into any negotiation, any career without a goal, you're always going to want more. And the second richest person on the planet today wants to be the first richest person. And so I really like the frame of what is enough. Have you ever put a number to your career that said, if I walk away from basketball with $1 million or $10 million, that was success for my journey? Like you just said, driving the Chevy Malibu, the guy next to me might make $1 million and drive a nicer car. That's not my money vehicle. That's not my journey. What is success to me? That's where I like to look at the mirror, not the window. Social media is show me, show me, show me. Very few people look in the mirror and go, what actually does it matter to me? And so money and Psychology of Money is a great by Morgan Housel that really identified this, is if you don't have a number, enough is always going to be a continuous obsession, and it's going to become a negative. It's going to become a disease. We have to set our sights in our mind on, my neighbor may have a bigger house. That's fine for them. Are they happy? I know guys who have $50 to $100 million who were very unhappy getting those paychecks. Why? They're spouse, girlfriend, missus, whatever, not going great. Their kids don't interact with their kids, this, that, the other. Life is not happy. So as you look at what is success, it's more than just money. Financial success is a big, big part. But as we look at what does that mean to me, I have to have a number for myself. And being an undrafted guy, I always knew my number was going to be different than Matthew Stafford, who was the number 1 overall pick out of high school, college, the NFL, and is still playing. He gets to live a different dream and goal. And talking to him, I even asked him, do you have a number? And he did. And that's how I knew he understood what success was going to be for the Staffords, not for the Collinses, not for the Hall of Famers, for him. That was a cool element. And I will say it was a much bigger number than mine. One, I love to call out that you said the stories in there. Great books tell stories. As former athletes, as individuals, find your stories. Have 5 pocketed stories that if any conversation or moment comes up, you can turn to. People don't remember stats. They remember stories. Psychology of Money is excellent. A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, no relation. Excellent book. A great beginner investing book is Bogleheads, on Jack Bogle, the guy who invented the index fund and Vanguard. He was laughed out of Wall Street. Rest in peace. He's passed away. That is a great just introduction to how simple investing can be. Charlie Munger's Almanac is a good one that just, again, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are the greatest investors of our generation. And that book's much more about principles and concepts rather than strategies. Principles, Ray Dalio, also a good book. I mean, Your Money Vehicle. Honestly, when I set out to write a book, it was how do I tell stories at the beginning of someone's personal finance journey? When they get those checks, what are the first 10 steps they're supposed to go take? I have not had a single person read the book and go, I didn't learn anything. I even have CFPs reading it, and they read it because they love the analogies. They love the storytelling. And I challenge them. Man, I teach progressive income tax codes using ice cream scoops. What's your analogy? You go use it. Now we have students creating their own analogies for their schools, and it gets inserted. So that's really what the origin of Money Vehicle was for me, was how do I hand somebody a book and say, you're wondering how to start your path? How do I start in taxes, insurance, investing, tax advantage accounts, reading a pay stub, and all the way back to goal setting and habits? That's really where the journey begins. I love, people purchasing it and writing me later and just saying, man, this is the final action is setting up a Roth IRA, starting to invest in that Roth IRA. But you have to back into and reverse engineer why that's your action. You got to understand the language before you go take the actions. I set big goals, audacious goals, Good to Great, Hairy Audacious Goals, another great book. And I tackle them inch by inch. I got to come across a 17-year linebacker, and he really expressed to me the power of inches, the power that every day he comes in and steals just a little bit above his opponent and above his competition. I took that, cut 13 times. I saw Monday to Saturday, I had to steal an inch a day. And I went out on Sundays and eventually became the number 1 rated fullback in the NFL, making me the best in the world at moving people against their will. But it began with that inch concept. So I look at the million students, can't even give you an honest answer of how far we are. I'm in the thousands. I'm maybe over the last 10 years in the hundreds of thousands with all the virtual workshops and sessions and everything I've done. But my goal is always the next inch, and that's the next human that has changed their mindset and changed their lives by taking an action. And so million is my goal. I got a long time before I'm going to hit it. Inch by inch, person by person, as long as I keep delivering and bringing value. And with today's ever-evolving world of business and business athletes, the audience continues to grow for me. But I tell everybody, be careful of what you wish for. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur till they got the crown on and have to make a lot of the decisions and hold the weight of that thing on your neck. This game is not easy, and that's what I hate about social media, is them selling how easy it is to be an entrepreneur. Find a passion and find something that you are willing to be obsessed about, that people around you, my circles, are done talking to me about financial literacy. I promise you that. Why? Because it's become what I dream about, what I talk about, what I'm curious about. How can I get better at my chosen art? That's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. The goal of $1 million is my North Star, but I'm not approaching nor overwhelmed by that goal. I look at 2025 and I say, I've taught over 1,000 professional athletes, 5,000 college students, and over 10,000 high school students this year. Add them to the total, and we'll see where we end when it's all over.